Coming up on The Hurray Show.
I had a really brief crisis of faith. I thought, okay, well, I can't trust in science, apparently. Can't trust my own body. Can't trust my mind because I thought for sure I was pregnant. And can't trust God because I really felt like God said, this is it. And I just started questioning everything. Like, what can I trust in now?
Welcome to The Hurray Show. I'm Kimmay, your host and undergraduate educator turned confidence coach, here to help you uncover your hooray inside, outside, and underneath. Since 2005, I've been supporting folks in the bra fitting room, where they've revealed it all. And we've transformed not just how they see their bodies, but how they see themselves. Now we're taking that same full-hearted support and bringing it to you. There's no airbrushing here, y'all, of bodies, beliefs, or the beautiful mess of being human. Just real stories, honest conversations, and tools for your self-worth journey. Hooray! Oh, it is time for the Hurray Show. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I found this quote recently, and I want to read it to you. It says, I heard someone say that grief is like glitter. It clings to everything, hides in the corners, and shows up when you least expect it. And honestly, I've felt that in my bones. Y'all, we're talking about grief today. In fact, we're talking about my grief. This is still very present for me. And if you're human, I know that you have and will encounter grief as well. So we're going to talk about your grief too. Now, if you are deep in grief right now, I want to make sure that you know, like, this is still a very safe place for you to be. But if it's just too tender, please know you can always just earmark this and come back for later. But we are going to talk about, how to get through grief and have that hooray within you. In fact, I have some lessons that I'm learning in grief, especially as a sparkly person, as someone who's expected to be shiny and happy and glittery, and then showing up in public to a very big event that I'm kind of known for bringing my own joy with me and my own light. And what do you do when you're in the bowels of grief? So finding that hooray and allowing ourselves to be humans that experience different kinds of emotions is our topic today. This is also the first time that I will be talking about my IVF outcome here on the podcast. I've shared on Instagram a bunch. I've had some really beautiful support over here, but we are going to be talking about infertility and IVF. So again, if that's just a super tender topic for you, please honor that. Come back to this later, but please come back because it's actually really important. Like, there's a shared grief that we have with each other. That's sort of a general grief of being human and having different versions of loss. There's also a really specific grief. I find it really, really comfortable, or should I say supportive, when someone has gone through the very kind of specific grief that I'm talking about. So if it's time for you to get that support right now, or if this is still just too tender. So please take care of yourself. It's all about taking care. That's really what we're talking about today. And before you go, I want to say, like, this episode is truly meant to uplift you. It really is. And even though I have my days and my moments where I am still so filled with sadness, I'm standing here today, sitting here actually, on the other side of this microphone with a whole bunch of hooray in my heart. And that's just what I want to talk about today. And be honest about what it feels like to be a grief-stricken person. Also, there's some really hilarious parts of this story that I want to tell you that I think I knew even when I was in it. I was like, this is going to be funny eventually. But while I was in it, it was really crappy. And I felt really, really sad. So there is some hilarity that you'll get as well. Anyway, so in this episode, what you can look forward to is I'm sharing my IVF results with you, how I got through my first week after those results, an attempt to go out and have fun that ended up in public crying and then being covered in glitter and having my friend have to tape my boobs. That's a whole conversation you are just going to have to wait for, but it is worth it, I promise. And you'll also hear about my thoughts on grief, on friendship, and just letting ourselves be held, both literally and emotionally. I say all the time as a bra fitter that my biggest job is to support you, and that includes literally and emotionally. And boy, this is just another version of that. So welcome. Here we go on the Hurray Show. First things first, let's take some deep breaths in and out, some slow breaths in. First, let everything out. Slow breath in.
Let it go. Oh, yeah, keep breathing nice and slow. You can drop your shoulders, relax the jaw, relax the forehead maybe. Maybe roll the head around. Oh my. If you are a person who's going through grief, you know you will feel it in your body. You will tighten up, you will clamp up. You'll just feel this like the depression is so physical, right? So take good care of yourself. Um, in fact, the number one thing I did right after we found out about our IVF was to go get a massage. So here's what happened. So, listen, I share openly that my husband and I have been trying for 5 years, like really intentionally trying to get pregnant. And I have never been pregnant. And we had this opportunity to do IVF maybe like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it did not feel like the right timing. It felt really rushed. It was just not for us. It felt really expensive. And all I'd ever really heard was how difficult it was. So I was like, why would I sign up for this? This is insane. So instead, I ended up getting endometriosis surgery, which did confirm I had some endo. Shout out to my fellow endo warriors. I also hired a naturopathic doctor and started seeing an integrative doctor to get my body really well taken care of. And I'm so proud of that work. That was so important and remains a really important part of this journey for me. And just like caring for myself as a human, so important. But it was actually one of those doctors who suggested I look at IVF. And I told her, I was like, I'm not really into this. And she had mentioned how it doesn't take away from the miracle of conceiving and of pregnancy and how miraculous it can actually be. And I thought, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And as soon as I opened up the door, all she wanted me to do was to book a couple of appointments with people. She's like, we're going to do everything physically possible to get you and your body ready to conceive naturally. And then, should we need it, it's just another tool in our toolbox. And I want you to have those connections with those doctors already open and ready to go because it's quite a process. So it was January when I booked those appointments. And I happened to be in Paris, as I am, for lingerie expos and such. And I had a really big, big month. It was also my 40th birthday that month. And wouldn't you know it, the doors swung open to an opportunity for IVF that was covered. So it was like a trial, and there were some fees, thousands of dollars of fees, but it wasn't, the same price as it would have been regardless, or I guess if we had gone without the study. And we also explored going to Spain for IVF. This is a longer story than I have time to tell right now, but what you need to know is we went forward with it. We decided to do the trial. We did the IVF. It is hard. It was really difficult. If you're a person who's also gone through IVF, girl, person, holy smokes. Like it was way more intense than I anticipated. The hormones, the shots, the everything. I don't even mind needles. It was still just so intense. And, we were very, very, very intentionally now trying, and I decided to share this with everybody. In no way do I regret being so public about this because the amount of support that I had specifically, people praying for us around the globe, well wishes and good vibes, and I'm thinking of you just like on a constant basis. It was extremely supportive. I also had a lot of gratitude from people who maybe had gone through this process and didn't feel like they were able to talk about it openly and had this bit of shame around it, or just nervousness. They were so thankful that I was sharing this. And then I also had a lot of people who maybe knew someone who had gone through IVF and didn't know how much it entailed. And they were like, holy smokes, you really opened my eyes. So for that, I'm very grateful. But then came the day of our transfer, which was a big, exciting day. It was giddy. It was so fun. And we knew that in about 10 days, we were going to have our first pregnancy test. Now, mind you, we went from having 14 eggs extracted, 11 that fertilized, 8 that made it to day 6, which means that they are mature enough to potentially be transferred. This is such a more than my numbers moment too, by the way. If y'all know me, I'm very much like more than my numbers. But those numbers were good. They were great. We were like, we have such high prospects here. Then they went through PGTA testing, which tests to see if these embryos are, quote, normal, which is really like, That's a rude way to put it, but they can tell now, mostly. Mostly, okay, science has its limits, but mostly if that embryo is going to implant or not, might miscarriage, might result in a really life-threatening or altering issue. And there's a lot of ethics here where people are like, that's not ethical, that's not okay, like God do his thing, all sorts of things. But this was part of the study that we actually had to do. And we thought, okay, we're going to do it. And it came back that only one of those 8 was, quote, normal and was approved for transfer. We were shocked, shocked. But at the same time, we were like, this is miraculous. Like, we've had all these little miracles along the way. This is miraculous. All we need is one. Let's go. So transfer day comes, we transfer it. We know 10 days we're going to have the pregnancy test. I spent those 10 days absolutely in the most delicious self-care I've ever done. Like, it was so good. I did wonderful arts and crafts. I made pottery. I took up watercoloring. I had friends over. I was so gentle with myself. It was so good. And I really took such good care of my mind and my body, preparing it for this, what we thought was going to be pregnancy. I think you can tell that when we went back for the test, which was a blood test, and we got the results, it was not positive. Now, sometimes in this process, you can get a positive and then go back and the levels haven't continued. And so now it's negative. Or you can, go get to 6 weeks of pregnancy and there's no longer a heartbeat. Or you can get to 12 weeks of pregnancy. Or so, I mean, there's no guarantee along the way, right? That like something's going to continue. But I was shocked that we didn't even have a pregnancy. And I think sad is a really big understatement. I was distraught. On top of this, remember I mentioned I have endometriosis? On top of this, that day my period also started. So now I have hormones from the drugs, which is a lot, hormones from my natural cycle, and extreme pain from my cycle. That's just like something I deal with on a regular basis, which is horrendous. And then also this horrifying grief that we went through this entire process since January, and now it's July and I'm not pregnant. And I had taken off so much time. I had taken such good care of myself. We did acupuncture. I prayed. I had people praying all over the world for us. I surrendered. Like, I just felt like I had done everything right. So on top of me, like, grieving this loss, which I'm going to call it a loss, even though, quote, there was nothing there, but we had an embryo that did not develop an implant, right? So that's a loss of this, of this particular embryo. I also had this loss of like, wait a minute, I did everything right. I've also been waiting. Like, what is going on here? I had a really brief crisis of faith. I thought, okay, well, I can't trust in science, apparently. Can't trust my own body. Can't trust my mind because I thought for sure I was pregnant. And can't trust God because I really felt like God said, this is it. And I just started questioning everything. Like, what can I trust in now? So there was also this grief of like a loss of knowing, which now I can tell you has turned into this really brutal and beautiful knowing that I don't know anything and that I'm not meant to know everything. And that there really is this, oh, it's so difficult as humans that are so capable. Like, you're probably a really capable person listening. I bet you are. And you can do so much. And we have so much. We have so many resources. We have so many things. And then when there's something that we cannot make happen as a capable person, it's beyond frustrating. It makes you feel like, can I trust anything? Can I do anything? This grief started seeping into other parts of my life. I started doubting my marriage, which that was very brief. Thank God. My husband has been an absolute gem through this whole process. He's human too, and he's grieving too, but like, thank God. And then also it's been affecting my work. I took off a lot of time from my job to do this. And it started knocking my confidence. It also really affected my apathy. I was like, who cares? Does anything matter? Why are we doing anything? I started looking around the world at all of the deeply horrifying things that are going on. I was like, well, we're all just gonna, we're all just ruining everything anyway. Everything's crap. Why should we do anything? And I was really tempted to stay in this deep grief hole. Okay, I told you this was gonna be better. I promise it's gonna get better. But I say this too because I don't want you to think that I've been toxic positivitying my way through this. I went there. I felt it. I grieved, and I took really good care of myself in the process. So like I said, the number one thing I did, I mean, that first day, I just stayed home in bed. I'm not gonna lie. We did try to get out. We did this is actually hilarious. We tried to go get some, vegan desserts. So ve I'm dairy-free and gluten-free over here, and getting desserts is tricky. But there's a great place in Philly that has vegan desserts, and I thought, "Let's go there, please." And I told my husband who has his own way of grieving, so he actually laid in bed with me for a while, we cried, and then he was like, "I need to get out of the house." And he went back to work, which I was like, "F work." Like, I'm doing nothing today but watching, like, vintage Lindsay Lohan movies, which was a great way to deal with my grief, I'm not gonna lie. So on his way home, he's like, "Let's go, there." Turns out it was closed. I was grief-stricken again. Then I said, "You know what? There's an ice cream place that has vegan ice cream. We love that place. Come home from work, we'll go." He said, "Okay." So we came home, we put on clothes 'cause I was, not dressed for ice cream, and we went over there, and it was closed. And I was like, "Why?" I was so frustrated. So then maybe 2 days later, I went back to the vegan bakery and I was like, "I'm having a really hard day, I need to go." And I checked to make sure it was open, and it was. And I got there and I parked and I got out and there was a note on the door that said, "Our AC is broken. Sorry for the inconvenience. We're closed today." And I wanted to shout to the heavens, "Why? Why?" Luckily, I did go to a little grocery store and got a great gluten-free vegan brownie. So, got my fix. But the second thing that I did is I went and got a massage. And I love this story because, I might cry through this because I'd sort of I've seen this woman a bunch. She's helped me and helped my body process things, and I hold a lot in my body, and I'm a highly sensitive person, so I feel a lot of things, and I just have a lot of pain in my body. And, I told her, I said, "Hey, I might cry on your table today." And I told her, she knew what was up, and I didn't. I felt really good. I felt so good to be held and taken care of. And she was the first person, besides my husband, to hold me after this news, after this devastating loss. And I got through the whole thing feeling really grateful, actually. I was like, "God, I'm so grateful that people like her have decided to study this and to create a really beautiful space where they can just hold each other, especially women. Like, women holding women is so beautiful." And I went to the bathroom afterwards and I came back and she was standing there teary eyed. She's like, "I actually just read your little note that you wrote. I didn't have a chance to beforehand about like what you've been going through." And I mean, again, she knew, but she was just like, "I'm just really sorry." And I started sobbing. And she just held me. She said, "Can I hug you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she held me. So both the physical care and that emotional care right away was so important. And then I did several other things throughout that week. I took off from work. I went to a collage making class with a friend. I invited friends over just one at a time to go just float in my pool that we have here. And they were just so there. These friends were so there for, like, whatever needed to come up, whether it was sadness and depression or whether it was joy, because they are both present. And one of those friends actually ended up being the person who shared this very quote that I shared with you earlier, which is amazing. So we'll get to that story in a minute because again, that story is actually kind of hilarious. The other thing though is that I gave myself that week and y'all, I thought that was all I needed. Now, saying that out loud right now is hilarious to be like, "Oh, you only need 1 week of grief after going through something so traumatic." But it's because I fell into a very common trap. And I also think one really protective thing. So I say the protective thing because I think if I had told myself when I was deep, deep, deep in that well of grief that this was gonna stick with me for a very long time, I think that I would have been like, "So I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna make it through that, so I'm just gonna, like, tune out now." Like, God beam me up, right? Like, not to get too crazy or serious here, but it's really daunting, and it feels like, "Well, then why am I even bothering? Why would I even take care of myself? Why would I reach out to connect with people? Why would I do that? Why don't I just stay in my bed and try to disappear?" That would be my temptation, to be completely honest. So I think giving myself that week timeline was unrealistic, but also important for my grieving brain to be like 1 week at a time. one day at a time, one moment at a time, right? And even though I think that was unrealistic now, I'm so glad I said that to myself. And I'm so glad I gave myself a very concentrated week of caring for myself and reaching out to people. It was really, really wise, actually. Um, but also, I then, I have a therapist, thank God. And I saw my therapist and I was sort of judging myself. And I admitted I was falling into this trap of comparing my grief to someone else's or someone else's situation. There's so much going on in the world that I thought this is not worth being this upset about for this long. There are people who are going through way worse things. There's worse things I've gone through, maybe. That's actually subject. And she kind of looked at me and was like, "It's been a week." Now, mind you, that week felt like a month. But I also sort of was like, "Yeah, well, you might hate this question, but what's an appropriate amount of time to grieve something like this?" And she did not say this, but I guarantee you she thought, "Yeah, I do hate this question." But she was basically like, "Yeah, there's no answer for that. And this is big for you." She's like, "There are really hard things going on in the rest of the world. That's true. But this is really big for you." So I want to remind anybody who's feeling tempted to compare their grief to someone else's or to look around at the world and be like, "Oh gosh, somebody else has it worse than me. I should not feel this grief, or I should shortcut it, or I should get over it," right? It's wonderful to have perspective. We live in a first world country where we have first world problems. That perspective is so great. That awareness is so wonderful, and that can lead to compassion and empathy for other people in a really beautiful way. And one of my favorite quotes is that let me pull it up. Oh my gosh, wait, let me get this right. One of my favorite quotes that has actually been helping me a lot is that, oh my gosh, let me get it. Here we go. "The only cure for grief is to grieve." So if you are tempted to just shut it down, to turn it off, to feel shame about it, or to compare, and then you turn off that tap of the processing of it or allowing it to move through you, it will stay in you. And it will turn to things like anger and bitterness. It will turn to depression. It will fester. So that I knew right away after having that conversation with her. I was like, "Oh, I can't let this sit in here. I'm gonna have to let it move through." I'm gonna also say grief is really freaking inconvenient because wait till you hear the next story because it does not like keep a calendar, right? It's just gonna show up whenever it wants, which is kind of why it's like glitter. It's like when you least expect, you're like, "Why is there glitter on my face right now? Like, why is there glitter in my hand? Like, where did this come from? I thought I got rid of this. I thought I healed this." Like, I truly thought I had healed my grief because I had a beautiful day with a friend where I felt like, "Gosh, I did some really good processing there." I really thought, "I'm done now." Nope. That glitter sticks around, y'all. So let me check my notes, make sure I haven't forgotten anything here. Oh, yeah, just like really encouraging you to like, please stop comparing to other people. It really only makes that process of processing grief like longer and harder. And like you can't ignore the glitter that is stuck to your body, y'all. One day some light's just gonna hit it and it's gonna shine real brightly and you're gonna be like, "Ooh, I gotta deal with this." There's also a really beautiful example that somebody shared with me on Instagram, actually, a lovely influencer friend, and it reminded me of something I'd actually already known about the idea of the yard and the ball with grief, and that when you first go through something that's really, you know, hard, that ball in your yard is sort of bouncing around and it's enormous, and there's a button that it keeps hitting, or you, but it keeps hitting, and it's right on top of you, it is enormous, and it's looming. And then throughout time, either the ball gets smaller or your yard gets bigger, which kind of depends on like the metaphor you want to use here. And as your life expands and the yard gets bigger, the ball is still there and it's still roaming around your yard. And every once in a while, it will hit that button or it will hit you. And in this particular instance, they had said it feels the same every time. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but it feels. You feel it. It's not just like, "Oh, that's I'm feeling something there." It's like, "Oh." I feel this with the loss of my uncle. I still think of him all the time. Phew. And like, here's the thing, you can purposefully bring the ball to hit the button, like I did right now. I'm, like, purposely remembering him. But there are times where I'm just, like, walking on the street or driving, and I just think of him, and that's just that ball roaming around in our yard. It's there, it's present with us all the time, and we just continue to make our life bigger, and that grief feels smaller or it hits us less often, which is such an encouraging thing, actually, I think, to know that, like, it's okay that it's still there. It really, really is. Glitter and grief, remember, have this in common. They're messy, they're persistent, and they're strangely beautiful. I love supporting somebody else in grief because it's so human. And it really means that that person loved and they cared. When you grieve for something, that means you cared. I want more people caring about things in the world. And when you open up your heart to something like that, it might hurt when there's a loss or a failure or rejection. And that's what grief then picks up, is that love. Oh my gosh, can we take a deep breath together? It's time for a quick commercial break, and then I will be right back to talk more about this. Deep breath in, let's go to commercial. So, do you think you're wearing the right bra size? Statistically speaking, you're probably not. But it's not your fault. We truly were never taught how to wear the one thing that most of us wear every dang day. So we're left guessing or settling for something less than the best. And it does not have to be that way. I'm Kimmay, your undergarment educator with over 20 years of experience. And I've got a free bra fit guide video and checklist that will help you check your fit so that you can feel more comfortable and finally stop second guessing your bras. It's simple, it's supportive, and it's totally free. Get it now at hurraykimmay.com/free fit and say hooray for comfort, confidence, and bras that finally fit. Okay, well, that was a lovely little break, and now it's time to get back into this grief and glitter conversation. Here we go. Okay, so here's the story. So I gave myself that week, then I had a week of work, and then I went right on to my very first QVC debut, which, by the way, I crushed. I was wearing this dress, actually, if you're watching this. I was wearing this exact dress. And that took so much energy to be present and to be sparkly and to be alive. And then I went the very next day to New York City to go to 2 different expos, 2 big lingerie expos. Now, I usually show up to these expos and I am my glittery, shiny, hooray-filled self. I'm not kidding. People will literally stop me to take pictures, which I'm so honored about. And I just have these beautiful connections with people. And this time, I went to one smaller show first, and I was supposed to go on Saturday, like, as soon as I got in, but it stopped at my friend's first, and I was just exhausted. So that's one thing too, when you're caring for yourself in grief, the self-care is not just like, "Oh, it's be so nice and take care of yourself." I find it is absolutely necessary, because if I didn't sleep well enough, if I didn't eat the right foods, if I just, like, had a bunch of alcohol and I already feel physically not well, then my emotions are way more present and harder to lovingly process without having them overcome me. So, just a little tidbit there. So, I was in that place. I was really tired, and I kind of forced myself to go because I told myself, "You know what? You're such an extrovert. You're gonna go. You're gonna get there. You're gonna feel amazing." And I did not. I did not, y'all. I could not face it. I could not force it. It was so different to hear people talk to me about this that wasn't an Instagram comment. And it was so interesting because some people brought it up right away with, like, a knowing look or an extra long hug. Other people just literally said something about it. And then other people kind of ignored it, and I could tell they were ignoring it. It's like almost like I'm wearing, like, a neon flashing sign that shared something very publicly, and people were kind of like, "I don't know if you wanna talk about this or not," so I'm just saying not. And none of that's wrong. None of it was bad. I just wasn't prepared. I really thought I had overcome this. And I really thought once I went out and was in my element, in my favorite places, with talking about my favorite things and being my shiny self, that I would feel amazing. And I just didn't. And I had to really take care of myself that day. I sobbed a lot once I got home. I sobbed in public at a restaurant with a colleague because somebody brought up something that was just, I was not ready to handle. And I lovingly tried to tell her that, but I felt then like a jerk, like I wasn't, wasn't being nice. It was so hard. So the next day I took it easier, and I didn't go into the bigger expo until like 2 p.m. I took the whole morning just slow, slow, slow. I put on a beautiful dress, and I felt so much more nourished and ready to go.
And was it hard still? Yes. Did I do a better job of being able to, like, handle people discussing things with me and sharing things with me? I got some, like, Catholic fertility saint cards from people? Yes. I was ready. And then the next day, I put on the most glamorous outfit I think I've ever worn. It was so gorgeous, and I walked around, I was getting tons of compliments on that instead of talking about my infertility, which felt so good, but I was there all day from 10:30 in the morning until 10:30 at night when I went to a fashion show, and wouldn't you know it, the next day, I was exhausted. So I bet you can guess what happened that day. Now, most those days too did have their tearful moments, but this was Tuesday, and it was my wedding anniversary, my 13th wedding anniversary. Actually, one person, when I was upset, she's like, "But it's your wedding anniversary today." And I said, "Well, that's what makes this harder. We've been married for 13 years, together for 19, by the way, and we don't have kids. Not because that's the only thing we wanted or not because that, we should, but because we want them, because this is a desire in our hearts, and we've been trying for a long time, and it's still not here." So I almost didn't go to the expo this day, but I really wanted to see this one person that I've known in the industry for like 20 years. Plus, I had left some things at someone's booth, so I literally had to go back in. And I found it so difficult to concentrate. I found it difficult to be kind. I just could not, I couldn't be present. Actually, on the subway ride there, speaking of being kind, I do think that going through your own grief opens up your empathy quite a bit. Have you found this to be true? Because I was on the subway, almost in tears at any moment on the way there, and it felt like, I was just trying to, like, hold it together in this public space. Not because I was judging feeling emotional, but just because it just wasn't the safest, most beautiful place for me to process and have these emotions. And I started looking around the subway, and I realized any of these people could be going through something like I'm going through right now, or some other loss, or some other grief, or some difficulty, or some worry, some fear. And I would just never know because we're all trying to hold it together. And that gave me a lot of empathy for other people of just like, there's that quote, like, you never know what somebody else is carrying. Like, you never know. I don't know if people would have just seen me on the subway and been like, oh, that woman just got some of the worst news of her life a couple weeks ago. And she's trying her best to hold it together. But that glitter is persistent. And look, it's like, I can see it. It's still there. That grief is persistent. I don't know if they would know that. So that helped out a lot to just like think about the empathy for other people. That said, back at the expo, we're at the Big Javits, by the way, the Javits Center in New York City, which is like a giant, big show, expo room, tons of windows at the top. And I know like 90% of the people there, whether they're my clients, they're my colleagues, they're in the industry, and I usually show up and I'm shining and I'm teaching and I'm having a great time and I am struggling. I'm struggling. And every single person I'm talking to, I'm crying. I had a really beautiful moment with this woman who has like great grandma energy and had recently actually unfortunately lost her husband. And we both were just crying in the booth, going through our own griefs together. And then I had a very honest conversation with that friend of mine that I wanted to meet up with about where I was and how disappointed I was and how frustrated and how sad. And I cried with her. I cried with like 3 or 4 other people. And I thought, you know what? I grabbed myself from the booth that I needed and I thought, you know what? I'm invited to this event tonight that's really fun. And it's very literally glittery. And I thought, I'm going to go home, change into something spectacular. Because boy, that worked last time to like wear a fun outfit. So I'm just going to change into something spectacular. I'm going to go out. So I went home. I was so tired. I was so sick of crying. And I put on a jumpsuit with like a plunging halter neckline, hot pink, maybe like a fuchsia. So gorgeous. And this event was a burlesque event. And the person who was running it makes these really fun little pasties. And she has a beautiful story about making them after going through breast cancer. Just a beautiful story. I thought, I want to support her. I don't know if I'm going to know anybody there, but I'm going to go. And again, this was my attempt to be like, I just want to invite some joy in. It seems like a fun event. Let's go do it. So I actually put on the pink pasties underneath my halter, and they were like glittery hearts,
bright pink, match my outfit, and they took the little tassels that are usually in the front and I turned them into earrings, and I was like, "This is gonna be amazing." I put on a little blouse over it, so I was like, felt safe on the subway and walked there. I even went up did a little thrift shopping beforehand, not shopping, but browsing. Went in and just, like, psyched myself up like, "You're gonna have a great time." Thank God there was a woman there from a store that I know really well, her and her employees. Thank God. Um, but we watched the burlesque performance, which was Dirty Martini. She's fantastic, so that was so fun, and I was, like, really like, "Okay, I'm feeling good." I had a great conversation with a woman from Toronto. That was really good. I was like, "Okay, I'm feeling okay-ish." But it all felt a little bit like I'm kind of going through the motions, which sometimes you have to do. Then, I don't know what clicked this, but I just started feeling really down again. The glitter had showed up. The grief was present. I was like, a wave of grief arrived, and I thought, "Ooh, I can either go because I'm feeling this grief, or I can do my best to participate and invite joy in." Now, here's the thing, I just wanna be really honest here. I'm still learning where that line is. When do I take a rest and say, "I actually don't need to be around other people. I wanna go process and cry and kick and scream and just be alone and cuddle up with my Sunny cat," or, whatever. Or when is it beneficial for me to sort of kick my own booty and get out there and have a little fun and just invite that in, like, start to let that come into the cracks a little bit. I'm still learning this. And that night, I think I made the wrong decision because I decided to stay. And everybody got these really beautiful gift bags that were from these 2 companies, and there was really expensive, cool gift inside some of them. And everybody sitting at the little table with me got the really expensive, cool gift, and I did not. What was inside my bag was literally just the pasties I was already wearing. I was like, "What?" Now, on any given other day, I would've been like, "Whatever, no big deal." And God bless my friend, she did try to, like, give me hers, and I was like, "I actually don't need it, it's really fine." And it's true, I really didn't need it. It was just I felt like this is just the way things are going for me right now. Everything's just bad, nothing is working out the way I want. It was like that pervasive feeling of like, well, if this one thing isn't going well, that's not going well, nothing's going well. It was not a cute feeling, I'm not gonna lie, but that's what grief does sometimes. It seeps into these other places and you have the temptation is to think, "This is permanent, I'm always going to feel this way, and it's pervasive, it's going to affect everything." I know now that's not true, but in that moment, I did feel like, "That's it, I feel like this for everything." I tried once again, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go up there because they had live piano karaoke. Now, if you know me, I love to sing, love to sing. I've been singing since I was a little kid. I trained in musical theater. I was in a phenomenal choir in Queens. I sing in my church now. Like, I just absolutely love to sing. I'm a really good singer. I love harmonizing, you name it. And, my friend went up and she sang and everybody cheered for her and it was really great, and I thought, "I'm gonna do this too." So a couple other people sang. I was having a hard time picking a song, nothing was feeling right. I finally was like, "Let me just pick this one." And then when I got up, they said, "Oh, I actually see this other song." And she was like, "Oh, do you know us really well, though?" And I was like, I guess I think I do." And so I started kinda singing it. She's like, "Yeah, it sounds like you know it." And I was like, "Okay, great." So we get up there and the lyrics that I have and the lyrics that she have are not consistent. So I only have like this, a short paragraph of lyrics and she has like pages. I'm like, "What are these other verses? I've never heard these." It was also in a key that was not for me. It was so low and nobody was really paying attention. In fact, one person I think was excited I was singing and then everyone turned away because I bombed. I've never bombed a karaoke in my entire life. In my entire life. And I don't even take it that seriously. But it was so sad. It was like, "Womp, womp," and I sulked back to the table, sat with my friends, like, "Good job," and I was like, "That was not a good job," and I was like, "I think I'm gonna go." Like, I just was like felt so defeated, and I just knew it had nothing to do with the karaoke, it had nothing to do with the prize, it had nothing to do with the beautiful performance that we'd seen earlier. I was just really sad. That grief was sticking to me real glittery, like. What makes this funnier is that I went and again, to take care of myself, and I found this really great restaurant that has gluten-free. It's all gluten-free, and then a lot of dairy-free options. So I took it, I sat outside, I was sitting in this beautiful, dusk time in New York City, out on the street. It was so stunning. So, like, little glimmers of beauty here. And there was, unfortunately, a gentleman who was walking around barefoot and ranting, like, loudly. And I was just like, whatever, it's New York, man, do your thing. And I called my husband, and he was like, happy anniversary. And I just started crying in public. And while I was crying, not only did this man come up to me and go, what are you crying about? And I was like, what? I took out my headphone. I said, sir, I'm just having a really bad day. He's like, well, I'm having a bad day too. And I was like, okay, great. Well, I'm talking to my husband. I'm gonna talk to him. He asked me, is he the reason you're having a bad day? I was like, are you trying to hit on me? Like, what is going on here, sir? You have no shoes on. No. And I was like, no, he's actually very wonderful. I'm just gonna go talk to him. I was like clearly crying. I was like, please let me cry alone in peace on the street. Please let me eat my gluten-free food and cry in peace. And he finally left, and he's ranting and raving, and I was just like, oh Lord. And my husband's like, what was that? I was like, it was New York City doing its thing. And then I'm crying, crying, crying. And this waiter kept coming over, bless him, to bring things that I did not order. I was like, I'm done. I didn't order anything. Please stop bringing me things that aren't mine. He saw I was crying. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it's fine. Just go away. Like, just leave me alone. And then I went home on the subway and got to my friend's place and just fell apart. And this friend held me, y'all, held me. I was so thankful. Sometimes I stay in a hotel when I'm in New York, and sometimes I stay with friends. I was so, 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 so thankful that I was staying with her. She really showed up for me, and she's going through her own stuff too. And she really showed up for me. Thank God. We really need each other in these grief moments. Like, please don't be afraid to reach out to your friends. Some people don't know what to do with your grief. That's true. Not everybody's going to get it right. They're not going to know how to handle it. But there are people who want to help, and you can also tell them what will help. Do you want to be hugged or not? Do you want to go out and scream and dance, or do you want to stay home and watch something? There's just, and if you don't know, that's okay, because when you're in the grief, sometimes you're like, I don't even know what's going to help right now. But you can have them just suggest things. Truly, people love you. They do. And they want to help you. So this friend went above and beyond because I took off, this is like the pièce de résistance, because I took off my little halter thing. I was like, I'm going to take off my makeup, I'm going to get in my pajamas, and we're just going to like watch something together. And I pulled it down, and those little glitter pasties had literally put glitter all over my bust, my stomach, my chest. I mean, it had traveled. This glitter was everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. And it was also on a regular day, it would have been like, oh my gosh, there's glitter everywhere. Let me wipe this off. But that day, I was just like, I can't even deal with this. I tried to use oil to get it off. I tried to scrape it off with my nails. It was not budging. I did not want to take a shower. All I wanted to do was get in my pajamas. I just was like, I cannot handle this. And my friend, who, by the way, has a lot of experience with glitter and with grief, she said, I know how to take care of this glitter. We'll use tape. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she got a whole bunch of sticky, like, packing tape and came over. And I'm not exaggerating, while I held my bust up, she taped my boobies, my stomach, my nose, my shoulder, like anywhere where it was. And she got probably 99% of that glitter off of me. And I just stood there and let her do it and told her thank you. That is friendship, y'all. That is true, unadulterated friendship. It reminds me of that scene in New Girl, where if you watch that show, it's like my favorite show. I also watch it when I'm in grief because I love it so much. And I actually met Lamorne Morris, huge name drop, which is Winston in New Girl on the Today Show. And he's the only celeb. I've been on the Today Show 8 times. So I've met a bunch of the celebs backstage. He's the only person I asked for a picture with. And I told him that New Girl has gotten me through some very dark times. I was not lying. I love that show. Anyway, in this scene, Schmidt has broken his penis. And he's wearing a cast, and he can't get an itch, and he has to ask somebody for help. And so Jess is helping him with this itch with like a long, like, I don't know, stick. And somebody walks in and goes, what am I seeing here right now? What am I looking at? And Schmidt's like, friendship.
Pure, unadulterated friendship. That's what was happening here. This glitter on my boobs moment was pure, unadulterated friendship. And then I put on my PJs and we watched the first episode of Hard Knocks training camp with the Buffalo Bills. Thank God. It was exactly what I needed. I cried tears of joy because I loved it so much. And we just hung out together. And she just let me be sad and let me be happy and let me be all the things in between. Now, mind you, I was finding that glitter. I'm actually still probably finding that glitter. Like, it is just all around. But for literally, because it's now been maybe like a week later, I'm still finding that glitter. And that's just how grief is. Grief just continues to show up. It lingers, it clings, it hides, and then just shows up. Not because it wants to punish you or harm you, but because it's this little glimmer of, hey, remember you really loved this thing. And hey, remember it's time to process this. And hey, remember it's okay to feel sad about this still. That's what I'm finding anyway. I think we can also loosen our expectations on ourselves a little bit because, again, as an extroverted person, I really thought I'll just go out and be my usual shiny self. And I was not always that person. I needed the space to grieve. I needed to be able to rest and to take care of myself more than usual. So I have to really give myself grace, and I encourage you to as well. It can, again, it's not convenient. It can feel really frustrating. This is the biggest event of the year for me, for the lingerie world in New York. And I was like, I can probably show up for about 30% of this. I can give you about 40% of my energy. And then the rest is reserved for this really difficult, heart-wrenching thing that I'm going through. Now, it's also tempting to think, oh, everyone's going to hate this. They're going to leave me. I should be ashamed of this. That's not what I found. I found so many people who were so supportive. Even if I wasn't ready to receive their support, to be honest, I was grateful that they tried. I really, really was. So I think you'll find that more people are interested in supporting you than not. So wouldn't you know it, the very next day, by the way, is when I saw that Instagram quote. And it was shared by one of my friends who'd come over in the pool who happens to be a therapist and a grief counselor. I could not like drum this up. This is like from a movie. The very next day. So of course I sent it to my friend. And she was the one who said, Grief and Glitter, that sounds like a book title. And I said, or at least a podcast episode. And here we are talking about grief and glitter and how they linger. So good. Listen, I wanted to just like wrap this up with a few takeaways here because I want to like remind you if you're going through grief right now, or you will in the future, we all will. Honestly, we're so human that grief is not linear. It doesn't keep a calendar. It's going to keep showing up. It's meant to. It's meant to just remind you of the things that you loved, even when you think you've moved on. I really thought I had moved on and it showed up again. And sometimes healing looks a lot like, sometimes it looks less like getting over it and more just like, how do I like live with this glitter? How, when it shows up or I see it, do I like go, dang it, this glitter? And just go, oh, there's that glitter again. Shiny. Thanks for showing up, glitter. And then doing the loving process of cleaning yourself. I also want to remind you of the intimacy in friendship can go so beyond just like a pick-me-up. Like really allow yourself to be open in your relationships and allow people to love you. Intimacy is not always just, girl talk and whine. Sometimes it's your friend holding you while you cry, and then it includes tape and glitter on your boobs. I also want to encourage you to have the permission to give yourself to feel. Because fun and sadness are both going to be present in this process, and they're both equally important for this healing process. You are really doing your best. It's okay to learn when to rest. It's okay to learn when to go out there and put on your shiny hat and show that part of yourself. You really are just doing your best. We're all learning. Fun and sadness aren't opposites. They can dance together in the same night. And leftover glitter means you were probably laughing and dancing before. Like you were probably having a really great time. If you wake up another, another day and you're like, where did this glitter come from? You are probably having a great time before. And that's because glitter and grief show us what we loved.
Grief is just pointing us back to something we loved. That's it. Or something we cared about, someplace where our heart was. So it's okay if it shows up. Even though it might hurt, please know it's a loving thing. It's really part of love. Leftover glitter means you probably had a great time, and leftover grief means you loved once deeply. I also want to say that God is a lot like glitter. God shows up in unexpected places too. I've had so many that has to be God moments in this whole process. Like, you can't rush the grief out the door, but you can invite in kindness while it lingers and really look for God in the little glimmers along the way. I really feel like that's the way I'm going to get through this, is honoring the hard part, not rushing it, but then also looking for the glimmers and for God in all the little things. And even in the mess, glitter catches the light. Even in the ache, there can be some beauty. Ah, so good. Jamie Anderson says, grief is love with nowhere to go. It's like when we feel like, oh, I loved that thing, it's no longer here. I loved that thing, it didn't work out. I would just encourage you to put that love someplace else. Put it on yourself, put it towards your friends, put it towards God. Like, let that love recirculate, because that's really what it is. Okay, if you are a Bible person, I have so many beautiful verses here that I'm taking for myself, because I really feel like there's like so much in the Bible about grief and mourning. So much, because it's so human, right? It's so human of us. So here's a couple. Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Oof, that was me. That is me some days. John 16:22. So with you, now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. This is looking like way ahead, but I want to say too, like, everything is temporary. Your joy is temporary, your grief is temporary, your frustration is temporary, our bodies are temporary, like, everything's temporary. So when you feel like this is permanent, you're never going to feel good again, I want to let you know you will rejoice again. I promise you. Ecclesiastes 3:1 and 4. There is a time for everything, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And 2 Corinthians 1:3 through 4. The God of all comfort comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves received from God. It's hard to say this, but I actually do believe that what I'm going through right now is for a purpose. I didn't believe that at first. When you're like fresh in grief, someone probably said that to me, and I was probably like, F you. But you don't want to hear that. So I get it. If you're fresh in grief, you will not believe me yet, and that's okay. But again, it took me about a week for me to think, oh, that could be true. And not just for myself, not just a purpose for me, but for other people, for me to be of service to you, for me to come do this podcast while I'm still in my grief, and to tell you, like, it is possible to hope. You are going to get through this. You are loved. You are comforted. It's okay to reach out for people's love and to receive it. It's okay to be angry with God and be like, God, this didn't work out. He can take it. He can take our worries and our doubts and our frustrations. We can talk to him about it. And that you will get better. This will feel better. Your yard will get bigger. The ball will feel smaller. It's going to press that button less and less. And it's the only way through it is through it. The only cure for grief is to grieve, to process it, to work with a professional if you need to process it, but to feel it, to release it. If you are carrying your own version of grief right now, whether it's fresh or it's been hanging around like glitter for years, I just really hope that this reminds you that there's no deadline for healing. You don't have to scrub off every little sparkle before you can move forward. Some of it will cling, and that's okay. Because with the ache, there's really some shine here. There's moments of connection, there's intimacy, there's friendship, there's relationships. And if you have your own grief and relief, if you have your own grief and glitter moment, I want to hear it. I want to hear how you are saying hooray during this time. How did it work out for you? What helped you get through? What helped you say hooray while going through the grief? Have you noticed that grief lingers and it's like glitter, and years later you're still finding pieces of it and going, oof, feel that? Is this true? Because I am fresh in this grief, just a few weeks off of it, and I'm still feeling it. And I have a feeling it's going to linger for a while. And I think that I can also find some shine and hooray along the way. Hooray. I just love you all so much. I'm so thankful that you're here. This is a tough topic, and I almost didn't record this. So if you found this helpful, if you found this inspiring, or maybe if you just are grateful that we're able to talk about this and that we aren't just all hiding it away in shame, could you just let me know? I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear how you're doing too. I'm sending you such a big hug and hooray. And now it's time for a Q&A. Oh, I love this part. This is another one of those, wait, what is it? It's a Q&A with Kimmay. Oh my goodness. Listen, y'all, I'm very excited about this Q&A because this is about trying to salvage a bra that has been broken. Here it goes. Do you know how to fix my bra strap? It's one of those ones that removes at the back but is attached to the front. The clasp snaps that keeps it attached at the back, and I don't know how to fix it. Buy a new clasp, ditch the bra completely, help! Okay, in an effort to keep your bra from the landfill, let's see if we can fix this strap on the back. Especially if you love this bra, I want you to keep it. So if you have a convertible bra that has a removable hook in the back, and the hook has broken, or the little loop has broken, you can actually re-sew this and it can be good as new. You can find the little hooks in the back at like a dressmaking store, or sometimes a craft store, or even online. They'll usually come in a big pack of them, so you'll have lots of extras, and then you can just loop it back on and re-sew it, and you're good to go. It may not be exactly like the other one, but it should work. But honestly, if you're like, I don't know how to use a sewing machine very well, finding this online is going to take way more effort, and this bra is not actually even in good shape, then friend, please just go and get a new bra. I'm all about helping your bras last as long as possible, but don't try to save a bra that's not even fitting you well. Please let me know how this turns out. I hope this helped you, and I hope this helps keep some bras out of the landfill. If you have a question, you can leave it below, and please share this with somebody who needs to know. Hooray! Hooray! That's a wrap for this edition of The Hurray Show. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a dose of hooray in their day. Come on over and say hi at Hurray Kimmay on Instagram, and grab the show notes with any links to what we discussed, shopping codes, or more information on our guests at hurraykimmay.com/podcast. I hope today's episode helped you say hooray inside, outside, or underneath, or maybe all three. Either way, thanks for spending some time with me. Until next time.